So friends, colleagues, students and visitors, welcome to the Melbourne School of Design Dean's Lecture Series. My name is Julie Willis and I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning here at the University of Melbourne. I begin this evening's proceedings by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which this event is taking place, which may be multiple lands given our different locations. I'm currently speaking from the land of the Wurundjeri, the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. We join in their responsibility to care for country as built environment and design experts and acknowledge the importance of Indigenous knowledge in understanding place and in the Academy. The Dean's Lecture Series aims to connect the Melbourne community with international leaders in built environment fields. This is our second lecture in the series for 2021, and I'm very pleased to welcome tonight's guest speaker. Bangkok-based landscape architect Kotchakorn Voraakhom is recognised as a global leader in climate resilient design. After completing her Master of Landscape Architecture at Harvard's Graduate School of Design, she returned to Thailand in 2006 to focus on building productive green public space that tackles climate change in urban areas and climate vulnerable communities. In 2011, she established the award-winning practice Land Process, which aims to use projects to confront climate uncertainty and facilitate productive public use. This ambition is exemplified in innovative projects such as the Thammasat University Green Roof, which upon opening in 2019 was considered the largest urban rooftop farm in Asia. Her talents extend into advocacy for social and environmental change. Within Southeast Asian cities such as Bangkok, investment in open space and green infrastructure is new, often emerging after extensive lobbying, advocacy and education. Kotchakorn has played a major role in advancing resilient design approaches across Asia. In 2017, she established the Porosity network, which encourages climate resilience in Bangkok through a built network of permeable public space projects. She is currently chair of the Landscape Architecture Without Borders working group of the International Federation of Landscape Architects Asia Pacific region and chairs the IFLA World Climate Change Working Group. This extensive and impressive contribution to design practice and advocacy has been recognised by prestigious international awards and speaking opportunities. In 2019, she was named one of Time's 100 Next, a program that spotlights 100 rising stars who are shaping the future of the world. In 2020, her contributions were recognised by the United Nations with a Global Climate Action Award, along with being included on the BBC's list of 100 inspiring and influential women from around the world. A climate change warrior and a self-proclaimed badass Thai urban landscape architect, Kotchakorn's innovative model of practice demonstrates that the actions of an individual can make a difference. I'm very much looking forward to her presentation, and I'm very pleased now to hand over to Kotchakorn. Welcome, and thank you for joining us here this evening.
Sawadee ka. Thank you so much, Julie, for a great introductions. And I'm so honored to be part of the Dean's lecture and to be meeting all of you in Melbourne. I'm actually right now in Bangkok, Thailand. So let me share you what I have learned as a landscape architect through my practice. And let's start.
Hi, the part you see behind me is fixing one of the biggest problems. But first, let me tell you what the problem is. Flooding. Flooding happens when water overflows into an entire city. This can ruin homes, streets, and lives. And according to data, flooding is only going to be a bigger and bigger problem. Take Bangkok, for example. Bangkok was a small city near a river, but over the years, the city grew with more concrete buildings and streets. It went from a land that could absorb water to a land that could not. So when it rains in Bangkok, it can more often than not flood, and that can be deadly. Shortest struggle to evacuate people.
The severe flooding here in the Northeast as more rain continues to fall today.
It's a real problem in this city, your city, and most cities around the world. They are sinking while the water levels are rising. And that's where this woman comes in.
Hi, my name is Kotchakorn Voraakhom. I'm from Thailand and I design parks.
She built a park that is designed from the grounds up to protect from flooding. See, unlike the flat streets of Bangkok, this park is tilted up. So when it rains, the water doesn't stay in one place. It falls down to the bottom and is collected here in a water pond. Then she built a water tank underneath the park that collects all the rain. So the water that would normally flood is now stored inside this park. And in the dry season, the tank is used to water the plants. Up to 1 million gallons of water can be saved this way. It's a win-win-win.
From this park, I want people to learn how to live with nature and that nature keeps changing. So I want people to be able to adapt to the new challenge of climate change.
In reality, though, this park is only 0.003% of Bangkok area. So realistically, it will not fix the flooding problem, but it's a good start. It's a good start for smarter city development. It's a good start for making a city more green. It's a good start for water conservation.
My next goal is to create more parks.
And if there's one thing we can learn from this park and this woman is that no water should ever be wasted, not even one drop of it. See you.
So yes, I'm a list on the top 15 women leading fight against climate change and Green 30 for 2020 and 100 women from BBC. And before pandemic or even right now, I taught it at the Harvard universities and many other universities. And this is the most value ecology that we kind of look over is wetland. And my city, my region, and many part of the world used to be that's what we call swamp and mangroves. But right now it's being covered to concrete. This is Bangkok right now, and you can see how flat we are. We are part of Delta cities, and as similar to New York, some part of New York, Tokyo, London, New Orleans, and many other cities that are confronting flooding right now. And this is what the natural age that we turn into the shrimp farm. So that's mean the right now challenges is also about sea level rise. It's not only about the rain, but it's also about the sea, and then also about the water from the north, which is like coming from the bigger watershed. So Bangkok is like really part of the final city that connects the river to the ocean. So we are water-based city, and many cities in Southeast Asia, especially Thailand, this picture from Indonesia, are using dams to protect the water, which is like, this is very normal for our daily living in the rainy season, which is like 4 to 6 months in Thailand. And this year is like the most drought period in our history. PM 2.5, we export so much electronic trash from the developed world because many countries in our region doesn't have like a law that protect this kind of waste. So it's probably cheaper to send it over to many countries or into my country and my neighbors. So I think during the pandemic, we are very clear that this is such a big call for us to be awake. And I would like to really focusing on like how we couldn't use what we used to use as normal, like GDP. It shouldn't be like the framework that we should measure our city or our well-being, because it's not enough. And like, if I'm sitting on the car burning gas, my GDP is going up. But if I'm, say, home with family, the GDP is going down. So there are so many of these measurements that I don't think it's fair for us to use anymore. And if many of this leadership wouldn't talking about environment, is such a shame, because we are at the point that we are adapt or die. So we are low-lying city, and this is such big problem to really understand the base of other city, that is a water base, it's not a land based.
The sea level is already higher than Bangkok.
So this is the park I did, and you can see how concrete we are. And this is like the first new park in 30 years for 15 million people city. This is like really crazy. And as you see that this is so flat, so we tilt the whole park and put architecture as part of it, and having a biggest green roof at that time, and then having a wetland, having a retention pond. So the whole surface, half of it is like architecture would be part of this park. And also like people can enjoy this kind of water-based plants that we hardly see nowadays, and be part of this like tilted park, how to clean the water. And it's actually won many like international award. When it's tilt, it's not only just about the water. Of course, we have to answer all these park requirements and all the people use. And I'm so honored that before pandemic in 2019, Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, came to the park to give a big support. And also the other thing is about food security. I think it's such a big thing that our profession, especially architects, landscape architect, urban design, should be part of this. This is a very, like, we are very vulnerable. Like even in Thailand, that we can go many things and food is everywhere. But when it's come to pandemics, many like poverties become part of the problems, and how we eat so much meat and things. So this is the biggest urban farming rooftop in Asia that Julia mentioned, and is it's actually on top of the buildings, and is really complete the circular economies for the campus. So all the waste food from the canteen can actually be part of this fertilization, and all the water that been saved on the retention around can be pumped up to the solar roof, and then just using gravity to drain down all this plant. So we actually I'm actually get the concept from the mountain, and then thinking about the northern part and many part of Southeast Asia, that we're using it as part of the food source by just gravity of the rain. So thinking about if all the city of the waste space of this concrete, like millions of square meters that give us all this urban heat island, can turn into the food security and food place for us, and learning place for younger generation, like all of you guys, to know where's the food coming from. I think it's such a best lessons that my generation can give to the next. And this is like solar roof, the rain coming down, slow down 20 times of the runoff. So rather than flooding on the ground in 5 minutes, it's probably going to take 100 minutes for all this water to come down. So this is a new way of thinking about architectures and working together with architects. This is like public space on these waste areas, and this is like new young generation of farmers, and it's on the waste space of the city. And I think I'm so honored that we're running the models for water cleaning, and I'm so honored that it's the year best last year from the Architizer A+ award. It's an architecture kind of things, but this is like a landscape we integrate to this part of architecture. So I think we need to work more. And all the award that these buildings and this green roof get is actually the top award of all sustainability. And yes, with all this work, I got recognition as a profession. Of course, I'm happy, but I'm very honored to push this landscape architect profession to be like a needed profession. This is another waste space in the city, a 40 years old corrupted structure, white elephant in the middle of the prom area of the city. And we actually call it amputated bridge. And we turned it recently last year into the first pedestrian bridge park that across the river in any capital in the world. So this is like very narrow space that everyone forget about it, and we turn it into this such a living place for city and for people to access to the river view. And we're raising up because of the pollutions and using it to be part of the public space. So I think we need more innovation. And not any tourist has been experienced this yet. So when the world's reopen, welcome everyone to Bangkok again, to Thailand again. And I think there's so many opportunities, especially tackling climate change. I think we should think about the health space. This is another way space in the health care system, like all this rooftop, unused helipad turned into the biggest healing garden, and using the waste, using the urban farming as part of the healing process. And this is government hospital, so it's like poor people can come here, rich people can come here. It's really sharing about the social equity that landscape architects can be part of it. So I'm actually running out of my time. I have way more to share, but I also working with the climate vulnerable community around the country, like the flooded community in the canal, and how they can live with the flooding and still be in the place. Not all of us, many of us have to be displaced to this natural disaster. And using helping together with younger generation, all my students to be part of this learning. And this is another floodplain community in the northern east of Thailand. And they love to build dams because it's how government spend a lot of money. And they want to build down on the right things, but we try to convince them that if you build, you save, but the other part of the downstream community will get more flooded. And you're going to flood yourself because the water is coming our direction. And we're using our tools of design to actually explain what it's going to look like of this 400 million baht budget. And when the community start to understand that this is going to change their lifestyle and changing many other things. So it's the part that they reject this whole project and trying to find a better solution. So Canal working with the Bangkok governor, really turning the sewage way to the public space, and working with so many, like this is Central Park of Bangkok, and we are working on it to like really help revitalize the canal. So I guess would stop from here and really appreciate and thank you so much for having me today. Thanks.
Oh, Kotchakorn, thank you so much. It's been fascinating to see this work. Very exciting and wonderful to see the changes and the positive effects that this can have on the urban infrastructure, not only in places like Bangkok, but also lessons for the wider world. If you would like to spend a little bit more time on one of the projects themselves, Kotchakorn, I think we have some more time. Is there one that you might particularly like to highlight in greater depth to us? You need to turn your microphone on.
Yes, I think actually would like to maybe talking a little bit more of this canal project, which I think is such like thinking about all this Delta city, and we are dumped at many canal in our city to be part of the development and turning all this, like, let's think about the city as a body and be like cutting down our artery to drain our blood, or like to make the water flow. That's why I think the porous quality that we need to reclaim is so important for the water-based city like Bangkok and like Penang, like some part of New York, Tokyo, Shanghai, London, many cities. And I think like a good model would be like Amsterdam's, that they keep every canal to really function the city. And thinking about many other cities, we actually destroy canal. And right now I'm really working with the mayor to turn, well, I hopefully, like, before we have 4,000 canals in the city, right now we only have like 1,500. And it's so hard for city itself to breathe, and no wonder why we flood so badly. And sewage way, equal canal, how could that be? And we transform into the concrete jungle. So I think that having to reclaim this canal and to natural to function, using natural-based solution to be part of this is so crucial, and we are working on it. And I hope that we can see the first one. I'm so sad to say it's the first one in the city of water like Bangkok to finish and to start at the end of this year. Yes, and I think that would be.
So can I ask you some questions then?
Please.
You've talked about engaging the local community by showing them what happens if you create too much of the hard borders to things and edges, and that there's not enough natural engagement. You have to forgive me, I'm an architect, not a landscape architect. How important is it to engage that local community in these projects?
It is so important because they are the main voice, right? Designer is a mediator for me, like facilitator, but they are the main voice. If the majority misunderstand of all this budget, of course, it's not going to go through them. It's going to go through the process of construction. So the money from top down probably not going to be benefit to them. I think it's so much. I feel so obligated to be part of explanation of all this physical environment that's going to impact their livelihood. And I think architects, landscape architect, urban design, we should do more. And we shouldn't talk only just like those who upper than us, but also understand the effect of stakeholders and let them be part of it and make decisions together. And they can say no, right? They can say no to design or to the budget or to whatever, and we be part of the process together. It's so important because it's going to turn all the landscape, and we're not going to be able to reclaim anything because all this structure will stay with us like 50 years, 100 years, forever, and many things will be lost. Yes.
And so are you working closely with government to try and you've obviously got some very important projects. Do you think you're going to be successful to work with government to bring back more of the green and those canals in Bangkok and beyond?
Well, Julie, this is the only way to survive, right? We like the body. If you don't rescue your artery or the blood vein, or how could we breathe, right? If you remember seeing the picture of the swamp area and then turn into like Bangkok. And this is just the one city around the world. This is so many more of this. And I just feel that, well, we have no choice and we move so slow. I mean, in the global scale. And we try talking so much about flooding, but we need to put all this thing in action, understand that dams is not like all the solution we need. We need to reclaim natural back to our city. And let's kind of understand our foundation, which is not money, which is not just social economics, but the landscape itself that we're standing on, the health of the city, the health of the landscape. Yes.
So in terms of keeping that landscape and getting it valued in the city, do you think that food production becomes important, or do the community just embrace the landscape when they see it? Because it's about keeping this for the long term.
I think when it's come to the food factor, and have you been to Thailand, Julie?
Oh, once, a very long time ago.
Okay, so it's like the food place, right? And I think it's like our culture, like that we going out from, even we are urban people, we have food, we have so much main of the income of the country still coming from the agriculture. So it's actually part of our being. And right now we forget how we get rice, like, and how we get good food. And to be truth, we export so much pesticides, the top 5 in the world. Where all those pesticides go is actually in our land and in our body, and maybe to all of you, because we export so much of our fruit, our shrimp, our many other things. So it's all connected. And I just feel that it's not about, okay, let's figure out food through food science or figure out food it's actually architects, landscape architects should be part of this solution. And you have to think about the problems that we create and turn that problem to fix this another problem as an integrative design. And I think I don't want to eat more pesticides anymore. So I need to be self-efficient. Even I need to know how to grow food myself during pandemic, and many more to come. Yes.
Okay. So perhaps that you could tell us a little bit more about the Damas University roof and how that works. Does it work as a cooperative? And what role does the university play in running that food garden?
Yeah, it's so important to fight that design to realize. But the most important for doing all this urban farm programming is the people, and then the designer is just like the beginning, but actually how the people that running the farm, because we're talking about vegetable that need care like every day. So of course it's pandemic, but the model that we are running right now is like using the staff from the university and pay them to work on it, or having some class of the student to be part of this farm and sell the food to the canteen. They have probably 5 or 6 canteen that need vegetable. So they take order, and then the vegetable go on the rooftop, and then the money kind of circulate. But not only just the money, but the organic waste from all this canteen become fertilizer for this roof. So it's actually create these circular economies that for the whole campus. It's not just architecture, or it's not just about a beautiful design, but it's really about teaching a new generation that this is possible. And I think it's so important that university role of this would have to be to teach the younger generation the word's possibility, because I'm sure that the younger generation not really happy of what they're going to be confronted in the future, like in their lifetime. Maybe I already used my other half. So I just feel that they're really concerned, right? And I just feel that we have to help them to make it in action rather than just like anger, complaining. And that's mechanism is important, but to really think and make it into action is so important of all.
No,
Yes.
That's great. So you've talked about the positive role that a big institution like a university can have in doing things like this. Do you see what role are property developers playing in this? Are they also embracing this as good for their developments?
I think they are very important, and this part of sector is really strong in Thailand, and I think they have to contribute more. I know that like in many developing world, you have like a law for them to force them to give away like their land for the public use and many more. And I think my country, we are still in process of doing that. Very slow, but there are so many developers that I work with and comes to me and asking for sustainable solution. Of course, as part of their brand or as part of their solution or as part of when the marketing their products. So I think they start to realize that people generation Y or X, they actually not only just consume, but they also thinking about what the impact that will have for the product or the condominiums and all these things. So I think that the trend is actually moving to a better, but it's too slow. And I think we should contribute more because adapt or die. And it's not about having a lot of money, right? It's about being survived and healthy. And pandemic is really touched our like ground, shaking our ground that are we really focused on the right things as a human in the ecosystem? We consume, we addict too much to growth, economics growth, yes.
And landscape architecture seems to be very strong in Thailand, other than you being an amazing, supporter of it and leader of it. But what do you think drives this interest in Thailand in particular?
Well, I guess I wouldn't, thank you so much, Julie, to say that we are so strong. I think we feel different from the opposite. But I think it takes so much grit and perseverance to finish one project. And I think we need more allies to push this through. But for me, myself, I'm experienced a great flood in 2011. It's actually like millions of people like homeless, being displaced, and it's crazy. Like, and I think I'm facing the word like adapt or die at that time, because I have like in a personal level, I have my sick mom, and where should we go? The water is coming. If you don't drive right now, the road will close. It's like, you think it's all in the movie, but it's real. It's like so real that I think people, I don't know, of course, not all majority can change, because it's so hard. When you tell someone to change, it's more easy than change yourself. So I just feel that by starting from ourselves is so important. And I think from pandemic, it's actually the same situation, but this time is actually in Australia, in Africa, in America, is actually put us together on the same confronting of challenge. And I think we need more landscape architects, doctors, and developer, all profession, to really focus on this issue. Because if we are talking about the great extinct, and I think it's actually just starting right now. So
yes, sadly. Yes.
Yes, sadly, and Thailand is really one of the most at-risk city from climate change. When it's rain, the whole city stops right now. and I don't want to move. This is my home, right? So I hope we can have more allies. I don't think we're strong enough for what we have done through these 50 years of development. And I think we have to do more.
That's great. We have asked the audience if they'd like to ask some questions. So they're coming through in the chat and I'll put them to you. I won't be able to necessarily name the person who's putting them to you, but let me see. So first question, it's just moving on me. Hang on a second. What can we learn from these large scale projects that can be translated into more systemic changes in everyday developments?
Yeah, I really like these questions. And the large scale project will not matter if it's not coming as a system. And when you see one designer work, you can see the country system, how can they push through. Like if we see many developed this world designer, they will have like all this connected river. I'm so jealous. I want to do those kind of scale, like even bigger. But I just like, but this is like a piece to piece, and we work closely with Bangkok governor, BMA, to really like see the whole system as a canal. I don't have enough time, but we are actually fixing one of the system of connecting, try to connect the canal into the CBD part and into many other parts of the city. So I would say it's a big project, but it's not systematic yet, because when you talk about systematic, you need more than just one big one. You need many small ones or some big one, but the whole system have to reclaim the nature for it to function by itself. It doesn't need a pump, or it doesn't need like us to like control, because this is not gonna last. This is not sustained. So I think I agree with systematic, and my job is to create enough like acupuncture into the body of Bangkok, enough for it to feel flexible. Right now it's paralyzed like this. Yes.
That's fantastic. So I'm getting lots of questions. I'm going to try and bundle some of them together.
Yes.
So I think I'll go back to the university park and the rooftop garden. Can they be used by the public or just students? And what's the plan for sustaining them over in the long term?
Well, it can be used by the public space, and I actually reclaim the waste space from the roof. Mm-hmm. By using as a public use. And you can see the shape that people can walk from the ground up, because I do so many roof, and the problem is like how people access up, and many projects fail because of it's so hard to access, because we're thinking about the rooftop of the building as a waste space, right, architect? So I think it's so important to integrate landscape architect as part of your team, and not at the end. Please insert us in the beginning. Don't think that we are just gardener greening of your architecture, but we can be part of your concept. We can be part of how the building should be formed, because we need innovation. And innovation coming from multidisciplinary. We need to work with engineers, we need to work more. Okay, what's the question now?
So I think you're already answering some of the other questions that are coming through.
So I'm just like, is actually working together is so important. And I'm not expecting my work to last because it's public space, right? Public space is actually have its own life. And every 10 to 20 years we'll have another new life coming up. Like right now, people are so different with smartphone and, like how they perceive nature. So I just feel that the physical space is still so important. So all those plant material can change. It can go rise, it can go many other things, but we still need the nature as part of what we're living anyway. So I don't know in the future what it will be like, but I just feel that to integrate the indigenous know-how of the rice terraces and many other things in your culture is so important. Don't copycat from Japan, from Netherlands, from Australia.
Okay.
Many people are like, yeah, you should learn from this and this and that. Like, yeah, I'm learning, but I couldn't just like having the dam exactly like in Amsterdam, because our Gulf of Thailand is so having different ecology. We have beach, we have wetland, they only have North Sea, so cold, we can swim all year round. And right, it's so different. And you have to listen to the local, listen to your own wisdom, indigenous people. Yes, have to honor all of this knowledge and come together as a modern solution.
That's fantastic. I'm going to ask you, I've got 3 key questions that I want to put to you, and I know that lots of people have put things in the chat and we won't get them to all of them tonight. But the first one
Yes.
the first one is, you talked a lot about the successes, but what are the challenges that you've encountered in seeing these projects through to fruition, and how did you overcome the challenges?
Oh my gosh, Julie, when one success is actually like 99 failure before the one success. Yes, people don't talking about it so much. And I just feel like, think about having a first park in 30 years in central Bangkok. How that possible was what have our landscape architects been doing all these 30 years? Like I was not even 10, right? So I just feel that it's a lot of obstacle, is a lot of money talk, is a lot about solution, and really convince the value. The value is not about the value of money, but the real value of the landscape, of the land that people really need to survive as a human, like clean air, like clean water, and all these things. So I think it's not easy, and I cannot do it alone. I have to thank you to all my great clients, who's like many of them are government sector and universities. And I have to thank to all the stakeholders, like communities. They really voice the project's directions really clearly. So when you gather, our job is just mediator to gather all this and make this as a case to convince your design. So I just feel that it's not easy, but it's doable. Yes.
That's
and great. Don't give up too soon. Yes.
I'm going to ask you an even bigger question now. It seems as though that landscape architecture across Asia is a burgeoning field, and some of the most exciting projects in the world are coming from the region. You know, how do you think it's developed over the last 10 years in the region? Have you got any great observations to share about that?
You mean, so the landscape profession will be in the future, or what's?
Well, certainly it seems to be that landscape architecture across Asia, not only in Thailand, but in China yes. and Japan and all sorts of places, it's really becoming such an important part of yes. the identity yes. of cities, and it's some of the most exciting projects in landscape architecture are coming from Asia. Are there circumstances that you think are helping this?
I think the circumstance is about we get to the point that well, having this profession to begin with, I just feel that it's the lack of nature in the city, like from the home state, right? Central Park in New York, when it's come to industrialization, and people that really need like the rural landscape to be part of their life. And I think humans still human, right? Even how 1,000 years ago, we still like having all these needs, and it's actually in the same kind of needs, but in different contexts and in different time. And we still need nature. And I just feel that luckily that our profession, we are an architect as well, but we an architect of earth. We're using trees, we're using plants, we use some concrete, of course, we try to reduce, and we use natural as our material. So if you really respect the natural material, you don't use, this is like a new knowledge to balance the city with the nature. This is not about farmer or farming, but it's about trying to find a new balance. I'm not trying to like, we cannot go back into Bangkok like 50 years ago with canal and we're using boats and all that things. But I just feel that we need a new balance. And that's why landscape architects become so important in the sudden with all this problem of PM 2.5 and many other things. And we need and even in our profession, we need a really good core know-how of like using native plants, how think about not just aesthetic, think about the function of water and many other things. So it's still emerging, I would say, Julie, and I think there's so much for us to learn from nature and to learn from each other, and to convince engineer from the gray infrastructure to a little bit more green gray is fine, not just like 100% gray. I think it's emerging, and I don't think we can go alone. I work with engineer a lot, and I fight with them a lot as well. Like this big guy is like, who are you? You're gonna leak my buildings and many other things. But it's actually about mentality. It's not about technology. There's nothing about technology that we cannot conquer at the moment. It's about the mindset. So yes, mindset.
So you're an amazing leader. What advice do you have for young emerging leaders who want to create change?
Well, I guess I got these questions a lot, and I think everyone is a leader in that extent. And I just feel that many people love to ask me about being a leader and looking Asian woman as well. And I just feel that there's so much leadership that you have to voice from your community. The leadership that you have to voice for your gender, whatever it is. Like there are more than two, definitely. And there is many other things that you have to ask yourself what you are carrying off, and you work for that through the passion, through the hope of the future that you see your communities you're going to bring to your community. Maybe people call it leadership or whatever, but it's something that is not going to stop you easily. But I just feel that everyone have that part, and we need to voice our passion more to our community. I'm not talking about passion about personal identity, but I'm talking about the passion that you create for your community, or compassion. Yes, leader for me is equal compassion. Like you're learning to be a human, and you work on that, and you bring more people with you, because it's so lonely just to be alone or to do things alone. Even it's fulfill your passion, but I don't feel that we enough with passion of this like big passion things like eco. But let's talk more about compassion and being the leader from building inside of everyone. Yes.
Kotchakorn, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and it's been an absolute pleasure to hear you talk about your projects, to see the very exciting work that you're doing, but also to hear your passion and your compassion for the world you live in. You've brought up so many fantastic themes tonight. We're really grateful for hearing them, and there's no doubt that I think the students who get the privilege of talking to you in the coming days will be asking question after question of you on all of these issues at great depth. Colleagues and friends, can I thank you all for attending tonight? Please do visit the MSD website for details of our upcoming events, and of course our YouTube channel to catch up on past talks. The archive is significant, and there's definitely something for everyone there. Thank you all again, and I wish you a good evening. Good night.